And when it does form, and this is, by the way, is not a biology class or a biology lecture, so I'll move away from the brain in a couple of minutes. What we're really seeing is this is where all the emotion happens. And this red line, the thinner it gets, the more connectivity it has between the emotional centers that say things like, I want it now, I want it now, and I want it now, and I want it now, versus, I'm willing to wait. Maybe 1 is okay, but 6 or 7 drinks, not so good. And so these centers are connected. They're there all the time. The connections are there, but they're stronger as kids get older. And one of the things that I think of all the parenting work that we're doing is we're teaching children when they say things like, okay, and they're listening to the parents are talking, the kid's saying, yeah. Whereas some of them are actually there, and the parents are talking, and the children are getting the message. So you have 2 different situations. You have children that are sort of listening, but not really paying attention, and you have children that are listening, and they're engaged. And what we can really think about there is that the brain's not really fully connected by those conversations, whereas the brain is fully connected by those conversations. And there's differences between our children. What we're really doing is we're using prevention as a mechanism for helping them move from disconnect between the emotional centers to connections. So we're moving from immaturity to maturity, from not being able to regulate your own behavior to having a lot of control over your own behavior. And so when I think of parenting is this process by which we raise our kids in a way that they're better at regulating their behavior. They have more control. And that's really what I think about when I think about these parent-based interventions. What can we do that'll make that difference? And from that perspective, I guess that's where I don't see major cultural differences. I think no matter what culture we're in, what we're trying to do is we're trying to raise our children in a way that they have more control over their own behavior and that they can make decisions that are good and bad. And so what age that is, that could be culturally sensitive. But that process, I think, is very similar no matter where you are. And I also think it's similar no matter what era we lived in, whether we go back 5 years, 50 years, or 100 years. So I think our prevention work speaks to this, and there's different levels of prevention. There's earlier stages of prevention where we're asking questions, and then there's later stages of prevention where we're using programs in the field that we know have an evidence base to them that work. And the work that I do with my colleagues, we do it at all of those levels. So we're always asking questions of, why do people do these things? And if we get them to do it a different way, will they be healthier? And then what's the best way of getting that message out into the field in the most economical way so that everybody can do it? So it's not just the parents that have time or the parents that have money or the communities that have better resources, but what's the best way to reach the largest audience and have the biggest impact? So again, I turn back to, well, if peers and friends are everything, why parents? Why not peers? Wouldn't that be the better means to have an impact on young people than parents? And the answer to that is that we have a lot of evidence, and some of that is discussed, so I'm going to go through this sort of briefly, that parents do make a difference. So it's not a matter of, are parents important, but rather, what's the best way to do this? From our alcohol work, we know that, the way that parents behave will have an impact on the way the young people behave. From our work in school, in academic areas, we know that parents are very important in decision making, much more so than their friends would be. We also know that interpersonal conflict, the relationships they have with other people, a lot of times parents will be much more important, say, than friends. And the truth of it is, also we know from just the science, which I'll go over in a little bit, that parents are important in making a difference. So what we know is that friends don't teach their friends self-control. That's not the role that friends play in their lives. Friends are there for social reasons. Parents, on the other hand, their role is to teach these sort of self-regulatory behaviors. And again, I don't think that varies from culture to culture either. friends are friends. They're the people you have a good time with. Parents are the people who try and socialize us into the roles that we have as adults in some ways. So we developed parent intervention materials, and I brought a few of these with me, and this is for the younger age, and these are for older age youth. One of these is our sort of standard version that gets customized, and then this one is from Canada. And so in terms of languages, this is in both English and Spanish because it's developed by and large for people in the United States, where these materials are developed in large part for people in the United States as well, but it's spread over into Canada, and then I've given them to people in other countries. So for example, in the Netherlands, they use these for parent-based interventions, and I just received a copy today of some material that's actually being used in Switzerland that is almost about to go out to parents whose sons and daughters get in trouble and they end up in the hospital. So from that standpoint, we haven't reached the point where we have it translated completely into French and German, but some versions exist, and we're happy to share that work. These materials, I might mention, I'll just hold one up for show and tell. These materials, they're supposed to be low cost, and the way I think of that is that they should be affordable for everybody. So the development of these materials and the distribution to get them in the hands of families should really cost no more than a cup of coffee or a croissant. So that's one of the ways that we should think about the cost. The other way that we thought about in the development of this is that we want this to have maximum impact. This we consider to be a brief intervention. So it's different than the programs that Emmanuel talked about earlier, PTP and family life programs, where parents have to attend multiple hourly sessions across multiple weeks, and there's a very intense programs. This is intended to be able to be handed to a mother or father who could read it at his or her own pace and have conversations with their children. And oftentimes when I meet people for the first time and I show them these materials, they sometimes have a reaction of, how could that work? That's just a booklet. How could that make a difference? And we have a saying, at least in the United States, that good things come in small packages. And this is a good thing that comes in small packages. What I can say is that there's no other parent-based brief intervention that I know of that has had as much research and clinical trials that have been conducted to evaluate the evidence to show that it works. And after at least 8 to 10 of these that have been done by myself and my colleagues, but other people independently of me, the evidence is there that when parents read these materials, it makes a difference in their children's lives. And I'll speak to that more as we go on. So if you're a little skeptical and you think, oh yeah, it's just a booklet. Well, it's not just a booklet. It has different components, and the components are meant, there's more components for younger people where parents will be, they're developing the relationships, the communication patterns, and so on. And then as the younger people get older, there's fewer components because the idea is that at this point in time, some of this groundwork has already been established.